In the year 1774, tensions between the American colonies and Great Britain reached a boiling point. Following the Boston Tea Party in December 1773, where colonists disguised as Native Americans dumped chests of British tea into the harbor to protest taxation without representation, Parliament responded with a series of punitive laws. These were officially known as the Coercive Acts, but to the outraged colonists, they became infamous as the Intolerable Acts. These acts aimed to punish Massachusetts, the hotbed of rebellion. The Boston Port Act closed Boston Harbor until the destroyed tea was paid for, crippling the city's economy and isolating its people. Other measures altered the Massachusetts government, limited town meetings, and allowed British officials accused of crimes to be tried in England. Even the Quartering Act was expanded, forcing colonists to house British troops. Sympathy for the Bostonians surged across the colonies. Thousands of gestures of support poured in, from shipments of food like wheat and corn to public condemnations of British tyranny. Leading colonists rose to advocate for vigorous resistance. In Virginia, figures like George Washington, Patrick Henry, and Richard Henry Lee were at the forefront. Patrick Henry, known for his fiery oratory, modeled resistance after the more extreme patriots in Massachusetts, such as Samuel Adams and John Adams. However, extremists were still a slight minority. Most colonists sought reform, not outright war. A typical example of colonial defiance came from the Virginia House of Burgesses. In a strong condemnation of the Intolerable Acts, they designated May 24, 1774, as a day of fasting and prayer to protest the closing of Boston's port and show solidarity. This act infuriated the royal governor, who promptly dissolved the House to silence the dissent. But the Burgesses wouldn't be silenced. Before a new election could be held, they reconvened informally at the Raleigh Tavern in Williamsburg. There, in the dim light of that historic inn, they made a pivotal decision. They called for a Continental Congress, a gathering of delegates from all colonies to address their shared grievances. This call resonated. Another challenge to British authority came from Suffolk County, Massachusetts, with the Suffolk Resolves in September 1774, urging colonists not to obey the Intolerable Acts and to prepare for defense. On September 5, 1774, the First Continental Congress opened in Philadelphia at Carpenter's Hall. 55 delegates from all colonies except Georgia were present. It was the first time colonial representatives had met on such a scale to discuss their common issues. Outstanding delegates included not only the Virginians, but also John Dickinson from Pennsylvania and George Read from Delaware. The Congress took a firm stand. They pledged full support for Massachusetts and urged unified resistance to the Intolerable Acts. To exert economic pressure, they formed the Continental Association, a pact to boycott British imports and halt exports to Britain. This non-importation agreement aimed to choke off trade and force Parliament to reconsider. While some extremists pushed for war, the majority blocked such calls, opting for peaceful but resolute measures. They drafted a petition to King George III, listing the colony's grievances and appealing for redress. Letters were also sent to the people of Canada, inviting them to join the cause, though Canada remained loyal to Britain. Before adjourning on October 26, 1774, the delegates agreed to reconvene in May 1775 if their demands weren't met. Little did they know, by then, the shots at Lexington and Concord would have already ignited the Revolutionary War. The Intolerable Acts and the First Continental Congress marked a turning point. What began as punishment for one colony unified 13, setting the stage for independence. This gathering wasn't just a meeting, it was the birth of a continental identity. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe to our channel.